Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. My name is Shanila Makhani, and as president of PMI Karachi Pakistan chapter, I welcome you to the fifth episode of the Readers Club. We would like to congratulate the members and volunteers of the chapter for attaining the chapter guest pass program. With this achievement, we have been automatically enrolled as a member of PMI's 500 Club for the year from Pakistan and Region 15. From April till now, we have successfully conducted 4 monthly seminars, 4 Readers Club sessions, and 5 webinars through our outreach initiatives. Through these virtual events, we have engaged speakers from 7 different countries and participants from 39 countries, and hope you will enjoy and learn from today's session also. Our today's Readers Club session book in discussion is Project Management for Education, The Bridge to 21st Century Learning, which will be presented by the co-author of the book, Walter Ginevri. Walter is a PMI Fellow, has experienced many forms of volunteering both at local and global level. He decided to devote himself more and more to give back as a seasoned project manager. This is because he is convinced this is the best way to provide his professional experience and competence gleaned over almost 40 years of collaborations with private and public companies, building a bridge between project management and education, supporting youth serving nonprofits, mentoring next generation project managers. This is where he plans to spend the best energies. He considered the Project Management Institute, PMI, and its educational foundation, PMIef, as his second family. It's an honor for me to introduce him, especially when we are celebrating PMIef 30th anniversary, which was on 4th of August 2020. And our book and discussion is also published by PMIef. With this, I invite him to start his session. For question and answers, please write your questions in the chat window. Thank you. Walter, I over this to you so you can initiate your session.
Yes, thank you, Shanila. And first of all, let me express my gratitude to Shanila and to the Pakistan Karachi chapter for this invitation. I'm really honored to speak about this book. The book was published in 2017 by the PMI Educational Foundation, as you can see in the cover page. And before starting my speech, I want to clarify that my primary intention is not to convince you to buy a copy of this book. In fact, you should know that the Italian translation of to convince is convincere, a verb composed by 2 words, con, which means together, and vincere, which means to win. So the etymology of the verb convincere is to win together. And this is the objective of my speech, to speak about the challenge of building a bridge between project management and education, and to convince you that we can win this challenge all together through a collaboration, through a cooperation among chapters, among volunteers. I am aware that it's not easy, but you know, my personal mantra is never say you can't. And so I'll do my best to convince you that to take part to this challenge and contribute to build this bridge for the future generations. Obviously, I'm happy if you will decide to buy a copy of the book, also because the revenue is totally addressed to the PMIef and its mission. But as I said, this is not the primary objective of this presentation. As Shanila mentioned in my profile, I consider the PMI and the PMIef as my second family. And so I consider you as part of it. So for this reason, I'd like to provide some personal information in addition to what you can find on the LinkedIn platform. This is the reason why I have summarized my passions and interests in this introductory slide. As you can see, I like reading good books and watching exciting movies such as Blade Runner. I also like playing guitar, spending time with friends, with good friends. And I have a special passion for the underwater world, and in particular for the authentic paradise that is the ocean, the Indian Ocean that you know very well. In fact, one of the picture is my special opportunity to swim in the Maldives in front of a 6-meter whale shark. It was, believe me, a very unique emotion. Last but not least, I am passionate of project management, and I'm going to show you that this passion is not limited to my professional life, to my business life, but it's much more extended than that. Let's start now to tell you the story of this book, starting from the origin and going on to the objective and the goal of the two authors. Once upon a time, in 2012, there was the PMI North American Congress in Vancouver, and I was invited by the PMIef to share my volunteering experiences of project management applied in the primary schools of my country. The other invited speaker was Bernie Trilling. I didn't know him. Bernie was a manager of the Oracle Foundation, whose role was to promote a collaboration with teachers and directors of primary and secondary schools of the United States. So Bernie is a recognized expert of education and school curricula. And during the last 10 years, he has become one of the most qualified subject matter experts of the PMI Educational Foundation. As you can see in the photo, we were smiling and very happy. And this was due to the discovery to have a common vision about the fact that the project management is a life skill and therefore a competence, a key competence for the future generations, for the 21st century generations. Today, I can say, after almost 8 years, I can say that the meeting with Bernie has been one of the luckiest of my life. Not only because we started conceiving the idea of a book, but also because I had the opportunity to know and to meet a beautiful mind and be inspired by his servant leadership and intellectual honesty. Bernie is really a great guy, and I'm very proud to be his friend. So this is the origin of the book, and everything started in 2012 in Vancouver. With regard to the goal, the main objective of this book, I think that this photo can be the best metaphor of the objective. In fact, you see a courageous teacher who is helping students to cross a river between their village and the school. In other words, we see a teacher and a group of students who are using a very primitive, a very essential bridge to connect their life with education. As you can imagine, this photo dates back to the beginning of the last century. And today, with the exception of very poor and disadvantaged countries, the access to education is easier, is less dangerous, let's say. But that said, Bernie and I believe that we needed to build another bridge, an ideal bridge to connect education with project management. And in our opinion, this is the best way to support the new generations in their projects of life. This is the goal of our book, and this is the mission we are dedicating our best energies. It's our common challenge, and we are very committed to achieve our mission. But for doing that, we need contribution with many thousands and thousands of volunteers and people passionate of project management. One of the curiosity of this book is the structure. After our first meeting in 2012, we had a second and decisive meeting in 2017 during the North American Congress in San Diego. I remember that we had a long discussion, 2 or 3 hours, a discussion about the structure to be adopted. And each of us provided a specific contribution. I pointed out the fact that our book should be addressed to 2 different target populations, teachers and educators on one side, project management practitioners on the other side. And Bernie agreed with my assumption. And he suggested to adopt these 2 books in one structure. In other words, he proposed himself as the content owner of the section to be addressed to educators, while I was the content owner of the session addressed to project managers, as I am. So we decided to spend and to focus on the 2 different targets depending on our familiarity with these targets. I was much more familiar with project managers. Bernie was much more familiar with the school teachers. At this point, the question was, what can we put in the middle as a sort of bridge between the 2 sections? And in this case, we didn't have a long discussion because the natural choice was to provide a collection of school projects delivered by students of primary, medium, and high school. We decided to put 7 school projects of different grades, and very soon you will understand why we choose the number 7. This is a short overview of the structure. On one side of the book, we put the project manager guide. This is the content I built. There is an introduction by a very famous person, Jim Schneider, one of the 5 founders of the PMI. Then an introduction with my personal story, followed by a learning guide addressed to project managers. And with the conclusion with the 2 storytellings provided by 2 project managers as their lessons learned about the experience in the schools. The other side, on the reverse, on the opposite side, there is the educator guide written by Bernie with the same structure. The introduction is obviously the same by Jim Schneider. There is the storytelling of personal storytelling of Bernie, followed by the learning guide for educators, and concluded by 2 storytellings by 2 school teachers, by 2 educators. In the middle, there are 7 bridges that are school projects developed in the primary, in the middle, and in secondary school by students from 7 years to 17 years old. This is the original structure we decided to adopt in order to address our messages to the main targets of our books, the teachers and the project managers. A meaningful part of the book is dedicated to analyze the evolution of school systems. And this is a short summary of the most important emerging trends in education. In this quote of a former Secretary of Education of the United States, you can see the essence of the challenge that the school teachers and educators are facing today. In fact, in the so-called VUCA world, characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, we need to prepare students for jobs that we can't even imagine. And therefore, we need to evolve towards a new way to prepare students for jobs and to transfer knowledge and combine learning and doing. This is the great challenge of all school systems, whatever is the country, whatever is the local culture. It's a very hard challenge. If we look at the student's perspective, they are facing another great challenge due to the fact that, as you know, the knowledge is becoming obsolete very rapidly, very quickly. So the paradox expressed by Alvin Toffler, an American futurist, is that our students need to be able to empower knowledge through a never-ending process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. In other words, our students needs specific skills for selecting, acquiring, and substituting their current knowledge. And this must be done not only during the scholastic life, but also during the entire professional life. So the students are facing a very big challenge to be prepared to learn, unlearn, and relearn in a continuous and never-ending way. In this chart, you can see one of the most successful reference framework adopted not only in the US, but in other Western countries. And this model is called the 4C framework or 4C model. Why is it so important? Because this model states that in addition to the vertical competencies such as mathematics, grammar, science, etc., we need to develop a set of 4 horizontal competencies that must be integrated with the previous ones. And these competencies you see in the picture are the creativity, that is essential, the ability to think out of the box, to think something new, to be creative. The other key competence is the critical thinking, which includes problem solving, managing constraints, and be able to combine a solution using different elements. So critical thinking is another key competence. And the other 2 competences are absolutely indispensable. As you see, communication and collaboration. Now, I don't want to anticipate the final message of my speech, but if you think about the project and the project experience in a classroom, you can admit that a project is a very powerful tool to stimulate creativity, because you need to conceive an idea, to stimulate critical thinking, because you need to manage constraints and to find out the best solution. And if you work in a project, in a team with other people, you need to develop your communication and collaboration skills. So the 4C's model is a very effective way to show how project management can be an enabler of the students' life skills. Another important reference in education is represented by project-based learning. The green wheel is designed by the most important source of information related to PBL, that is the Buck Institute of Education located in the US. Obviously, I have no time to explain this model in detail, but if I wanted to focus on the deep meaning of the PBL. First of all, project-based learning doesn't mean to add a new discipline in primary and secondary schools. On the other hand, PBL means to use school projects as a tool for a more effective learning of scientific and humanistic disciplines, such as mathematics, science, history, music, and so on. So if you will meet teachers in your future, I suggest you not to start with the question, why don't you teach project management to your students? This is the wrong way to approach a teacher. The question I suggest to ask teachers is that, for example, you could ask, on the basis of your experience, do you agree that the project-based learning and the project can be a powerful tool for individual and collective thinking and doing, a tool thanks to which you can engage your students in order to solve problems and solve challenging questions? Believe me, if you start from this question, the school teachers will agree with you, and you will start on the right foot for a future collaboration with them. So project-based learning doesn't mean to add a new discipline in the school, but means to use project as the ideal environment to stimulate students' life skills. Now, as I said earlier, the bridge section of the book contains a collection of 7 school projects, most of which were developed with the project management kit or toolkit for primary school. This toolkit was delivered by the project management, the PMI Northern Italy chapter in 2007. So I'd like to provide some basic information about this tool. Please keep in mind that if you wanted to know more, you can find all the details in the PMIef website. So this is a slide containing my journey, my fantastic journey in the PMI Northern Italy chapter. I joined this community in the last century, many years ago. And without any doubt, this community has changed my professional and my private life. In 2006, after many years of membership, I joined the PMIef board as Vice President of Education and certification. And 2 years after, we published the first version in 2008, the first version of the kit for primary school. This happened after 2 years of experiments we developed in different primary Italian primary schools, both public and private schools. We presented this experience during the EMEA Congress in Malta in 2008, and one representative of the PMI Educational Foundation was very impressed by our experience. And so the PMIef started promoting our experience and spreading our experience in other countries. 3 years after, we launched a new format, a new context in Italy through our chapter called the Progetti in Erba, which means projects in bloom. And every year, thanks to this format, we had the possibility to involve more than 20 schools every year in different cities of the country. And we could collect many lessons learned and many evidences about the positive effect of the use of project management in the classroom. I must specify that our role was not to substitute the teacher in the classroom. So our role is simply teach the teacher. So to show and to train the teacher in the use of the toolkit. And then the teachers were completely autonomous to use the kit and to adapt the kit to the classroom. So it was very respectful of the teacher role, because as project managers, we are not trained to substitute and to interact with the students of 7, 8, or 9 years old. So after this experience, we had an international opportunity. Thanks to the PMIef, we developed a project in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, involving 22 schools in this great country, and creating sister schools, 22 sister schools in Italy. So the students of both countries had the possibility to exchange the deliverables of their projects and to have a common experience about the use of projects in the scholastic life. And 3 years after, as I said, we publish the book that is not the conclusion, because this is only the beginning, but it was a milestone of this journey after more than 10 years of collaboration between project managers and teachers. And this is the short story of my journey. With regard to the kit, as you see in the note, in the footer, you can download this kit that is available in 14 languages through the PMI website. You can find the link in the presentation. But only to give you an idea of the content of this kit, I invite you to think on one side to the PMBOK, to the typical group of processes of the PMBOK: initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing. And at the same time, to think about a school project, a project developed in a classroom by a group of students. So at the beginning, the students, the first step is to build the project identity card that, as you can imagine, is the equivalent of the project charter. In the project identity card, the students describe the project goal, describe the who are the people involved, and the what is the expected results of this project. After that, they have to define the project scope. And for this specific task, they use a sequence of two different tools. One is the very famous and popular brainstorming. So all the ideas are collected and accepted, because in the brainstorming you cannot eliminate any ideas. But after the divergent thinking of the brainstorming, the students are invited to build a mind map, so to move from divergent to convergent thinking. And in the mind map, they have to answer to the key question of a project, like such as who is involved, who are the stakeholders, which are the expected deliverables, where the project will be developed, and also what if, which means which are the potential risks that they have to manage during the project execution. So the mind mapping is an essential part of the project scope definition. After that, the student started the typical planning process, and the first output is represented by the activity tree. We decided to use intuitive terms instead of technical terms, but as you can see, the activity tree is exactly a work breakdown structure, nothing more, nothing less. The following step is to put the activities, the elementary activities in a temporal sequence in order to obtain a project calendar. As a specialist, we call this diagram network diagram. And the project calendar is the last step of planning. After that, the project can start the execution. And in order to verify the state of the art of the project, the students use project traffic lights, which is a very simple way to represent the status of each deliverable. If we have problem, we are in red. If we are doing well, we use green. And if you are in the middle, we use the yellow color. So during the execution, they have to take some decision to change something, to adapt the calendar and so on. And the most important step from the teacher perspective is the final step, the lesson learned collection, during which the students have to express their opinions about the project experience, about the activities that they did, the potential improvement for future project and so on. So this is the very short representation of a school project. It was conceived for the primary school, but if you want to use this simplified workflow in a different level of school, like medium or high school, you have simply to extend this tool and to use more sophisticated tools like the stakeholder grid or the risk probability matrix, etc. But the essence of project management can be represented by these 7 steps. Okay, let's make some examples of school projects, because I explained the how, but it's now important to clarify what is the typical outputs, the typical deliverables. These are 3 examples that you can find in the book. One was developed by students of 7 years old. They designed and created a puppet theater to perform a show based on their selection of fairy tales. And you can see in the picture the final result, that is a very nice puppet theater developed by, as I said, the very young students. Another example is the organization of an exhibition. And the students organize and run an exhibition of all objects, including some gadgets to collect money for a local charity. So they provide the organization, they were the special guide for the exhibition, and it was a very nice project developed by students of 10 years old. And another example of students of an Italian medium school of 12 years old. In this case, the students designed and published a touristic guide containing the ancient history of their city, located in the south of Italy, in order to protect its unique water tanks. In this city, there are water tanks that are very, very old, more than 2,000 years old. And this is the idea of these students to provide value and to promote the beauties and the history of their city. So these are some examples. And obviously you can't read the content, but only to show you typical outputs of the project. What you can see are some examples of a mind map, of a calendar, of a project tree. But what is important to see in this photo is that everything is done by the students using visible planning tools, using post-it, using sticky notes. They don't use Microsoft projects, for example, but the choice was take it easy and use the most flexible tool, the most intuitive tool that are basic, that are available, and everyone can see the same content. The chart can be hung in the classroom, and so the students have the possibility to see the history, the sequence of their projects every day, and to live the project as a common endeavor, as a common adventure. This is only to show you an example, a short view of the project we developed in Africa for a group of students for 22 classes in the Congo. In addition to other initiatives, this project was funded by the PMIef, and as a chapter, we collaborated with an Italian NGO of veterinarian and agronomists. They supported local people in income-generating activities like vegetable cultivation, like soap production, and so on. And in parallel, we train teachers and students in the use of the kit. As a matter of fact, the kit was translated into Swahili, that is the local language spoken in the Congo. So this is an example of the success of this experience that was exported in other countries and in other continents like Africa. It's important to know that the PMIef website is a very interesting repository of knowledge assets. So if you look at the PMIef library, you can find many different documents. These documents are divided into categories like case studies, sample projects, learning guide. They are divided into different categories depending on the audience and depending on the student age. So there is a wide collection of documents. This is only a part of this collection, but I invite you to give a look to this repository because it's really a great information radiator, a great knowledge base for developing collaboration between your chapters, between project managers and schools and local schools. I also suggest you, if you wanted to live a very funny, exciting experience of project management applied, for example, at home, I suggest you a very great, very nice tool that is available in the PMIef website. It can be used by people of all ages and culture. It's very effective because you can simulate the project life cycle. It's based upon a set of very poor intuitive tools. And last but not least, at the end, the award, the final award, is focused on the creativity and the effectiveness of teamwork. So probably you are familiar with the tower game. There is a very famous similar context that is the marshmallow challenge. But if you wanted to test in your family or with your friends or in the school of your children, a very simple experience of developing a project and experimenting all the project steps, I strongly suggest to download this resource that is available in 18 languages. It's the most translated asset in the PMIef website. It's important now to summarize the lesson learned by teachers and students. We collected a lot of lessons learned. This is only a very short summary, and you can find more lessons learned in the book. But I want only to focus on the last sentence in this chart. Many teachers, they said that this approach empowers life skills. They recognize that there is a strong connection between the project management and the effects on the life skills of students. And they also pointed out the fact that the project is an effective tool to teach to learn, not simply to teach something, but to teach to learn something. That is another level of teaching, and is something that we need more and more in the future. With regard to students, they were very excited by the experience. As you can see, many students, they said, all decisions were in our hands. They were the real protagonist of the project. There is another curiosity. One student said that we decided to skip our break to make up for being behind schedule. I don't know if it's a good lesson learned, but it's an example of their passion, of their enthusiasm. And the last question, and the last sentence is great. One student stated that even the shyest children felt involved and took part in the teamwork. So the project is a very powerful way to engage all the students and to make them part of the team. Now I wanted to summarize the lesson learned from the perspective of project manager, from the perspective of chapter volunteers, and people like me. The first lesson learned, the importance of the experience journey. I remember during a tutoring with a primary school teacher, I made an observation about the quality of some deliverables. They were not so great, good in terms of quality. And the teacher accepted my observation, but she said something that I'll never forget. She said, keep in mind that my first objective as educator is that all students are equally involved in the project. So even if the objective can be partially compromised by this in terms of quality, I continue to think that the project journey is more important than the project destination. This is a very great concept. Obviously, as project managers, we know that we can't neglect the destination, but at the same time, it's our duty to assure that this journey, the experiential journey of our team, must be enriching and exciting. This is a famous sentence of a tennis player, a famous tennis player, Arthur Ashe. I don't play tennis, but I try to substitute quote, success is not a destination. The doing is often more important than the outcome. Simply with a project is a journey, not simply a destination. This is the first lesson learned. The second one, mistake as a learning opportunity. One of the sentences that many school teachers are used to repeating is that a mistake is always a learning opportunity, an opportunity to learning something new. Obviously, that doesn't mean that mistakes are encouraged or even awarded. It means that a mistake is the trigger of reflection, and this can be a good opportunity for the students. The genius, Albert Einstein, had a clear idea about mistakes. And he stated the person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. I am a humble practitioner, so I don't want to compare with the genius, but I have the same idea. And when I'm facing people who are only speaking about their success, their fantastic successes in project, I come back to the same conclusion. A person who never made a mistake never tried leading projects. The third lesson learned, the benefits of volunteering. This is a great presentation you can find on the TED platform, in which Dan Pink, stated that there are three elements that are the basic motivators for people. And they are autonomy, to be autonomous, to have a space of autonomy in your work, mastery, to learn something new every day, and purpose, the commitment to do what we do in the service of something larger than ourselves. Again, I have never been invited to a TED talk, but if this were to happen, I would take the opportunity to state that the benefit of project management volunteering evolves around the three elements that are exactly the same: autonomy in doing something, learning something new every day, and doing something for a purpose. This is what you will put into practice if you provide volunteering in project management. But the last and probably the most important lesson learned from my perspective, and thanks to the collaboration with teacher, is that project management is not, I repeat, is not simply a technical discipline. Project management is a universal language for everybody, whatever is the age, the culture, the type of work, the type of life. Believe me, when you see kids 7 years old who are building a deliverable-oriented WBS, even better than many senior project managers, you fully understand the extraordinary power of project management. When you see a Congolese teacher who is explaining a toolkit to students without notebooks and pens, you fully understand that this language can reduce inequalities. One great runner, Sebastian Coe, stated that sport is a universal language, and I agree with him. That said, I am a bad runner, and even if I'm not so famous, let me state that project manager is a universal language, building more bridge between people than anything else I can think of. And let me now conclude my presentation with my personal message to all the PMI Karachi, Pakistan, and all the people who are attending this webinar. First, let me clarify the difference between a very popular content, the corporate and social responsibility. The fact that some companies providing and responsibility is becoming more and more companies are of distinctive contribution. But individual social responsibility. Responsible in actions that have effect on the communities your immediate. This is a key, an important concept that is related to individual and social responsibility can be considered as the fourth dimension of the PMI Thailand triangle. This is the PMI Thailand triangle that you know very well. You should know that together with my friend and PMI Fellow Beth Ouellet, a couple of years ago, I submitted a paper containing the idea that social responsibility for a project manager is a sort of fourth dimension for the PMI Thailand triangle. Unfortunately, our paper was not selected, but we have become more and more convinced that the volunteering experience, whatever it may be, can contribute to reinforce all sides of the triangle. With regard to the technical competence, a project manager involved in collaboration with schools has the opportunity to apply best practice in a very different context. And this is very positive in terms of new knowledge, in terms of empowerment of his professionality. With regard to the leadership, a project manager has the opportunity to build a relationship with students and educators. And again, the effects on the professional development are evident as well. And finally, when you live the experience of a social good program, you have much more opportunity to appreciate the link between project manager and the benefits generated by project manager. And this is a link that in many projects, business projects, is not so evident. In conclusion, even if the idea of the fourth dimension of the Thailand triangle will remain on paper, I hope that some of you will reflect upon the link between social responsibility and the Thailand triangle of the PMI. As a further consideration about the effects of providing volunteering in the school and use most of the stories that we share in the book, I invite you to read this great sentence of Heinmar Soderberg, who stated that we wanted to be loved, failing that admired, failing that feared, failing that hated and despised. But at all costs, we want to stir up some sort of feeling in others. Our soul abhors a vacuum. At all costs, it longs for contact. In other words, we are social people. We are social person. And our desire is to build a relationship with people, to provide your volunteering, to collaborate with schools, to spend your time in spreading project management, in building this bridge between project management and education, will help you to create new to know not only a better professional. And this is my final message. As PM practitioners, you can help students to build their future. And please, please don't forget my mantra. Never say you can't. Thank you.
Awesome, Walter. It was really an amazing presentation we all had. There are a few questions. I think I have received one question and one comment. One comment was that I am a professional project manager. I'm practicing it since last 15 years. I have never thought that these concepts can be inculcated in the students and the kids. The project calendar and the work background structure approach is really amazing. I need to check this, and I'm definitely going to read this book. Thank you so much for sharing this comment.
Sorry, I want to show my face because I like to see. Okay. Can you see
That's
me?
great.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. So just want to check on the chat window for any questions. So we have a comment from Fozia that is an inspiring talk. PM is a life skill and should definitely be taught at younger ages in schools. Love the connection between PM triangle and individual social responsibility. So, yeah, do we have any questions from the audience?